up, guys? Welcome back to the JP and Trav show on the JP and Trav YouTube channel. As always, it's your host with the most, JP. And my homie Trav right now is unfortunately going through some technical difficulties. He should be on here pretty soon. He was just at the OKC Sparks softball game. He has a bunch of clients through Audience Rent that are in that game, so pretty cool for him. But just getting back home and trying to get set up, so we'll get him on here in a second. But also to my right, we have you guys. He doesn't really need an introduction. He's basically part of the show as much as he's been on here. The homie Ty Hayes of Around the Table Sports. Ty, how you doing, man?
Man, good as always. Thank you so much for having me on. It's always a great time.
Oh yeah, man. Love having you here, especially what we're about to talk about. And then below me, just one of my favorite people, and also just content creators in the Sooner space, Jay Smith of Unfair Sports. Jay, how you doing, man?
JP, man, as usual, it's always great to join some of the legends in the game. I appreciate you having me on tonight, man. Today's gonna be fun. This is gonna be a fun night.
It is. It's a lot to talk about, and one thing I did want to say, starting off top, if you got, those of you who are obviously in Oklahoma watching us, please be safe. We know that you guys have things going on. Obviously, cool if you can tap in, but obviously rather you be safe and focusing on where things are at. So make sure that you're watching your local weather stations for what sells or where and different things like that. But without further ado, I would like to go ahead and hopefully Trav will be on here in a second. He can join us in talking about this. I'd like to go ahead and talk about what everybody's been talking about for the last, just over 24 hours or so, and that is the 2024 SEC schedule that was just released. And to think that we're a year and a half away, but there's already so much excitement. It's palpable. It's in the air. Adding brands like OU and Texas are huge for the SEC, for college football, for all these fan bases. It's just going to be awesome because a lot of these teams have never played OU and Texas before, and so it's going to be kind of brand new digs, if you will. Let me get Ty. You go first, and then Jay, you can go. Just give me your first reactions to again, this new era we're going into in the SEC, and then obviously we're going to kind of go through the Sooner schedule in particular, and we'll touch on Alabama for our guy Ty as well.
Yeah, man. Look, I have been so excited about this for really since it was announced. I think anytime you can add my man is out here like he's having a seance. My word. Summoning the OU into the SEC on the show tonight. I see it. I like it. Okay.
Undertaker over here.
It just means more in the SEC. That's what I'm talking about right there. But
Fair
look,
point.
How you doing, Trav?
I decided that, the SEC does mean more, and I feel like I needed to conserve my energy for the 2024 season. So power outage here in Norman. I am doing it by candlelight and on my phone. So, so I'm going to be with you guys as long as my phone battery holds up. Maybe the power comes back on, but excited for the show regardless.
Man, as always, I can't wait, man. So good to see you and JP. But what I said earlier today on this, man, is this right here. One of the things you hear a lot in the SEC is like how difficult it is, right? And we've always heard like, well, it's not like you play Alabama, Georgia, LSU just back to back to back. But what you'll see is just like you'll start looking through your schedule and you're like, okay, if you're Auburn, you look at this and you're like, oh, okay, we play Arkansas. We play Oklahoma, we play A&M, we play Vanderbilt on the road. Like there's only one of those games. If you're Auburn, you're like, that's something we feel like instantly is a winnable game. And that's Vanderbilt. And that's kind of the theme. It's not that you're like, oh, we're playing behemoths every week. It's that we're playing ball every single week. And let's be honest, the SEC is about the best brand in college football. So let's add the best brands in college football. Adding in Texas and Oklahoma is awesome for all parties involved. I can't wait for 2024 to get here.
Jay, go ahead, man.
So, first off, Travis, be safe. Oklahoma City, we haven't got hit too hard yet. I just got a bunch of rain, not really anything else wild. But My first reaction when I saw the schedule itself come out is that it looks like it's just college football. I know a lot of people are freaking out that, it's going to the SEC, but the good thing for Oklahoma and, unfortunately Texas is we're not playing Bama and Georgia every week. We'll play plenty against some teams that are getting competitive, but we're not playing Bama and Georgia every week. The ones that you have dominated the SEC for the last 15 years. So it's been a lot of roller coaster teams, and we're going to just join in and hopefully start to continue to keep the momentum going, especially with the top classes that we've been consistently getting. If we keep these top 5, top 8, top 10 classes, we'll maintain top 2, top 3, top 4 with SEC classes if we're staying in the top 10. So talent wise, we'll have it. The question is going to be coaching. But looking over a lot of this, really the ones that jumped out to me is I realized that a lot of these SEC teams don't even play other SEC teams very often. Back in October, I went to the Tennessee LSU game in Baton Rouge down at in Death Valley. Of course, Death Valley is beautiful. Y'all are gonna love it if you go to that OU game down there. It's amazing. They're great tailgaters. They're great fans. They're nice people. They're not very abusive, but they do share their beers, so you will enjoy that. But that was the first time Tennessee played there in like 10 years. So my anticipation is that with the first the first version of these schedules is that this is going to change a lot in 2025. Just so be prepared for that. So if you have the opportunity to get out and go see some of these road games, do it, because you may not see them for like 5-6 years.
100%. Trav, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. I decided against going out to the OKC Spark game. Kind of wanted to stay local, and went over to the Mont and walked over. So I get all my steps in, and on my way back, the sky opened up. So this is a fresh shirt. All my stuff is hanging up in the shower because it's soaked. So, anyways, eventful evening. Like I said, doing this by candlelight, but got to give the people what they want, right? So you got to make it happen. Man, I think initial reactions really I agree with Jay as far as Death Valley. I was there last year, as we all know, for the Ole Miss game, and it was a blast. But when when the schedule first came out, I just started thinking, I was like, this feels like what a 12-team playoff, almost would feel like it's all the teams that would seemingly be in a playoff. And it actually reminded me a little bit of Omaha last year. I actually talked with Greg Sankey a little bit in the press box about that specifically. And you had OU and Texas there, A&M, Auburn, Arkansas, and Ole Miss. 6 of the 8 teams are SEC teams. So kind of fascinating when you look at it from kind of an all sports perspective. But yeah, really excited about the home games. Missouri is what it is, but the home games, Tennessee, South Carolina, Alabama. I hope they open with Alabama. Really hope they do, but only getting 3 home games is a bit of a bummer. I know the OU Texas thing, it's a bit of a bummer, but I would rather have these 3 home games than 10 home games in the Big 12. So, it's big time. It's going to be very exciting. I was on air with Teddy today. I have been for the last couple of days, and he kind of talked about the crowd is at its best, the team is at its best when there's pressure, there's risk. When a sleepy Iowa State team comes into town, sure, you're supposed to win. You got more talent, kind of go through the motions, go get the win. And then you could end up slipping, right? Like in restaurants, it's always the slow nights where you screw up a dish, where you forget to greet a table, where you forget because you're distracted with other things. You're not tested. And, when you're busy, when, you feel that pressure, that's when you really are on your game. And OU historically has risen to the challenge of the 4 national title appearances that we've had since 2000. All of those years, the schedule was a gauntlet. And it trains you for the postseason, right? That's the goal. And with the SEC, there are 5 teams that have won a national title since OU last won theirs. 4 of those 5 have won multiple national titles since OU has last won theirs. So I definitely want to be missed with the, man, OU's going to have a lot tougher time competing for national titles now. The data doesn't back that up at all. The data actually backs up that they have a better chance now to compete for national titles, because you've seen Florida do it a couple times. You've seen LSU do it a couple times. You've seen Alabama do it a bunch of times. Georgia now do it a couple times. Auburn's the only one that hasn't done it twice or more. So all those teams, I mean, Auburn's been a mess a lot of the time. Florida's currently a mess. LSU had losing seasons after they won a national championship. Bama is what they are. Georgia had some tough times under Rick. But even early 2000s, Bama was really struggling. So all of those teams have had down periods, but yet they've still found ways to win multiple national championships. So I think that bears out to be great for Oklahoma. You're going to get better recruits. You're going to be tested. You're going to be forced to keep the pedal to the metal as a fan base. You're going to be forced to innovate. You can't get comfortable. This won't be a situation like Lincoln Riley let the team rot from the inside, essentially. The trenches started suffering dramatically. The defense suffered dramatically. And he would rely on a superstar quarterback to basically pull their feet from the fire every game. Well, yeah, you do that in the Big 12, and all of a sudden you get to bowl season, or you get to playoff season, or you get to that, and you're getting smoked because you haven't had to make sure that you are developing that defense. You haven't made sure that you're absolutely doing everything you can to recruit at the highest level, doing everything you can to coach at the highest level, that kind of stuff, because you're just assuming you're going to win. So I think this will keep the pressure on OU to be the best version of OU. So couldn't be more excited.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said. I mean, at the end of the day, and as you said, Teddy, what Teddy was talking about, I was listening to the Oklahoma Breakdown earlier this week, and just, or I guess today, and one of the things he was talking about is, OU's fans really bring it when we've had big games historically, whether it's been big ranked games or Big 12 teams, or even Ohio State, Notre Dame, these different teams that have showed up. The fans have matched that energy. And so hopefully the fans will match that energy, when all these other teams come to town, which we'll get to here in a second. And obviously the team as well, that every week you got to be on go mode. It's not you're not going to, the Little Apple, even though obviously, contrary to popular belief, the Little Apple can be hard to play in, but it's not going to be as hard to play in as the Death Valley at night. Like,
if there's anybody that's going to give apples their credit, it's you.
Okay, relax. Let's move on to the Sooners home slate, which, we kind of said before, 3 home games. We got Alabama, Ty. That's gonna be a fun one. South Carolina, we got Shane Beamer coming back. That should be fun as well. And in Tennessee, got Josh Heupel returning to Norman, place where he won 2000 national championship game. Led us to our last national championship. So huge storylines all around. Let's start with Jay, and then Trav and Ty, you guys can jump in when you want. But Jay, when you see this home slate, man, what are you thinking? Like, what gets you salivating? Are you nervous about Alabama being on there? Is that the only team you're worried about? What are you thinking?
All right, so we've had Tennessee and Oklahoma. We know how that went, so we good on that one. I like Shane Beamer a lot, but I don't know if he's going to be at that year, if he's going to have his team established enough to actually be much of a threat compared to the defense we're putting together and the classes we're putting together here at Oklahoma. Bama, I have worry on, but I don't. Me and Ty talked about this on his show earlier today. The big thing with Bama for me is we don't know who their quarterback is yet. They've got 3 quarterbacks that they're trying to figure out who's going to end up taking the reins. But at some point, they will have the starter. So we know that they'll have something established. Tommy Rees is going to figure things out. It may take a year. It may take 2. Hopefully it takes 2. That way 2024 isn't that bad for us. But I do have a piece of Alabama I'm terrified in. Last year's class had 6 5-stars that they signed? By the time this game up,
they've signed 34 5-stars since 2020.
All right. 34 since 2020. And last year was 8 then, Ty? Was it 8 It was 8. It was 8 last year. So because of that, those guys will be freshmen, either redshirt freshmen or sophomores by then. And of course, Caleb Downs will be starting. This will be his second year of experience. They're going to have some monsters that'll be young, hungry, and probably playing by then. That's the only thing that terrifies me is that the stable, they restock the shelves in that building. Their cupboard is not bare when it comes to talent. And so it makes me nervous about Bama. But the good thing for me is that Bama's coming to town. We're not traveling to Tuscaloosa. They'll be in Norman. And I feel more comfortable with them in Norman than I do in Tuscaloosa. Now, granted, if they get a quarterback established, it could become a problem. But out of those games, though, I want to see Jackson Arnold versus Nico in Ilama Lueva. That's who I want to see. Nico versus Jackson Arnold. That's going to be fun. That's going to be electric. So if you go to any game, Bama will be great. Go to Tennessee. That's going to be a fantastic game between those two.
Trevor, Ty, feel free to jump in.
Go ahead, Ty.
Man, so this is we'll start with Alabama, right? Jay, you're 100% right. We talked about this. The interesting thing with Alabama is I say this all the time for Ole Miss, and I try and be nothing if not consistent. I got onto Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss because you had a quarterback in Jackson Dart, then you get a former 5-star quarterback in Will Howard, and then you get Spencer Sanders. If you have 3 quarterbacks, you don't have a quarterback. Well, lo and behold, Alabama at the end of spring practice goes out and gets a quarterback. Maybe that will answer questions, but as I said earlier, there's no way that getting a quarterback at the end of spring presents immediate answers. It presents immediate questions. So that's going to be something we have to watch. The interesting thing is there is a scenario where Alabama could roll in with a true freshman quarterback that year. Julian Sayin, currently lighting up at the Elite 11. He is, in my opinion, the most important prospect to Alabama this year. He's the stability in the quarterback room because right now there is instability. Granted, I talked about this with you, Jay. If Jalen Milroe gets the consistency together, his talent is otherworldly. Super talented guy, super good dude. Ty Simpson, kind of the same way. It's consistency. The part I completely agree, man, is I'm really excited for some of the pieces in this class. I mean, we hear about Justice Haynes already wowing Nick Saban, and Richard Young hasn't even really gotten on campus. He just got on campus, right? He was a former 5-star guy, ended up as a 4-star. Caleb Downs, it's something when Nick Saban compares a true freshman that hasn't been on campus 3 months to Minkah Fitzpatrick. Says he's the best player I've had since Minkah. Like,
on that real quick, there's stories behind that. Saban gives no praise to anybody. The best player he's ever coached is Minkah Fitzpatrick. And if you are considered better than him,
yeah, Caleb Downs apparently is Himothy. But the offense is going to have questions. The defense is going to have some more maturity in certain aspects. South Carolina, like JP, you said storylines. Tennessee storylines. You get Shane Beamer, you get Heupel. Now, what I am going to go ahead and apologize in advance for, and maybe if you've heard my stuff, you've heard me say this before, you guys have to travel to a certain place within the SEC. And I want to apologize on behalf of all SEC fans for you guys having to go there. Jordan Hare is cursed. Terrible things happen there, and may God have mercy on your souls when you go there. That's about all I have to say about Jordan Hare.
Auburn, for those that don't know. That's hilarious. So I can't say that word legally, I think.
If I say it 3 times, something terrible happens, so I don't even chance it.
Candyman just shows up behind him. Actually, a big tiger shows up.
Well, Chris Davis shows up.
Oh no, not again. Not again.
Tyson in the corner just rocking as he's watching the touchdown go by. No, he's running by me again.
That's funny.
Oh, that's good.
Why they would attempt a 50-plus yard field goal that year is beyond me. Every time I think about that, I don't know if y'all saw the what is it God, I forget the name of the movie. All Home on the Western Flank. The World War I movie. And the kid, he's sitting in the trench and he's got this 1,000-yard stare. Yeah, that's me thinking about the Auburn kick 6. It's just traumatic.
Dang.
Heartbreaking moments in college football.
Trav, what do you think, man?
So the order of them, like I said, is going to be interesting. I hope they start with Bama. I would love for that to even be like a week 2 matchup and give us one of those cupcake November games that you SEC fans have enjoyed for the last 20 years. I would like for something to kind of announce the OU and Texas to the SEC early in the season. Get those early storylines going. I would love for Georgia and Texas and Alabama and OU to all play each other on the same day, maybe the 2:30 slot and the primetime slot. That would take over. It would be the story of college football. No other conference would have any attention on any shows. It would be awesome. It would really be Sankey, kind of putting it on the table, if you will. But with those specific, one of my 3 candles went out. But
he sneezed.
I got to make sure not to breathe too heavily. Now I'm smoking myself out. So with those, I think it's interesting because you bring some familiarity, right? Like Alabama is Alabama. That's going to be hopefully a classic. But South Carolina, you got people that know Shane Beamer well. We'll have a talent advantage at that point, but Shane Beamer's a hell of a coach. So we'll see. They'll be breaking in a new quarterback as well that year, we presume. I don't believe their new quarterback is going to be quite as good as Jackson Arnold, mainly because Jackson Arnold is that dude. So, and then Tennessee's going to be really interesting because Nico is fantastic. I got to see him out at OT7 in person. It was right after it got reported how much money they gave him and everything like that. So he was a big storyline, right? So, our whole staff is extremely familiar with Josh Heupel, like former teammates, same recruiting class, like super, super close to that guy. So there's going to be, guys on that team whose coach was Josh Heupel's roommate at OU. Like it's a lot of familiarity there. And I'm also not sure. I think Tennessee's got a little bit of a, I don't know, kind of a Lincoln Riley thing going on. They can sure score on you. It's kind of annoying. They seem to always have somebody open deep because they scheme them open. I don't think it's any surprise that Hendon Hooker looked like a jag until he got with Heupel, and then all of a sudden he's putting up Heisman type numbers. I think Heupel's system is very good, but I think if there's a guy that can crack Heupel's system, it's going to be Brent Venables, and it's going to be that staff that knows Heupel so well. I think Heupel being emotional coming back to, the stadium, they're going to put together this, tribute video, and they're going to get him crying and get him all distracted. And, hopefully, I don't know, maybe we can make a makeshift like styrofoam statue of him by then to unveil or something. But anyways, I think that game, I like OU to go 2-1 at home. I don't know. I would love to announce our arrival to the SEC by beating Bama, but I'm just not sure what our team's going to look like at that point. Year 3 of Brent Venables' defense at Clemson was his coming out party and having an elite defense. So if you and he wasn't getting 5-star dudes, right? So we got 2 5-star dudes in last year's class on defense specifically, and then I believe we will have 2 5-star dudes on this defense specifically. So with that, he's got more talent than those Clemson teams that he had. And I don't know. It's time for Venables' defense to get to that elite level that we all know he can get it to. Going to be playing at home. If you want to catch Alabama, you want to catch them early in the year. They may be starting a new quarterback. They've had, and we look at Texas last year, like they don't really hit their stride until late. So they're always replacing a ton of talent because they always have a ton of dudes drafted. So early in the year is when you want to catch them. So, yeah, really excited about the games. Like I said, some familiarity will probably bode well because, sure, Heupel knows a lot of people on our team, but, I mean, it's you only know really one side of the ball on our team, and someone's coached by the guys on our team. I think the familiarity leans in favor of Oklahoma with those teams.
Real quick on that. So I hate to hurt feelings, but the best chance for us to play Bama, actually really the only chance is September 21st, which is the 3rd Saturday in September. And I'm really hoping it is that game. The reason why I'm hoping it's that date is because the weekend before Bama travels to Wisconsin. So now they go to Wisconsin and they duke it out with the big boys up there. And we all know Wisconsin's always got some big dudes. They just aren't always as skilled. Luke Fickell may change that up. We get them the 21st because we played Tulane that on the 14th. Whew. Might be a good chance for Oklahoma to pull it out.
Hey, don't sleep on Tulane though.
No, I'm not. I'm not. Every 4 years.
Riley's not coaching no more here.
Hey,
it's touche.
They were just in the bowl game, man. Like they wasn't just Lincoln Riley they beat.
Yeah, it's true. And you're right. They gave us they gave us problems with Lincoln Riley, and then they beat Lincoln Riley like the year.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
I digress. But I think if anything, Tulane, the only fear I have with them is that they will beat you up too. They've got big Louisiana boys as well. But getting Bama fresh off of the Wisconsin game, that may be that's our best, honestly. Because a lot of the SEC schools already have their 24 schedule set out. So most of them in September are already booked up. They've got their games. You've got Georgia going to Michigan. You've got who is it? South Carolina's going against Wake Forest. So it's going to be some. And I think Tennessee is going to. I just had them pulled up. They have North Carolina State. So yeah, we've got they've got some games established, but 21st of September, please give us Bama.
Let's do it. Let's get him fresh off getting torched by old Nick Evers up at Wisconsin. I talked to Derek today because the younger brother was here. He got his offer, offensive line, 6'4", 285, good-looking offensive lineman. He got his OU offer today. So I sat down and talked to Derek a little bit. He's like, look, Tanner Mordecai is going to start this year, but, 2024, Tanner will be gone, so Nick will have a shot at getting that job. So, hey, it's the long game, man. We sent Nick Evers up there to take down Bama to soften them up a little bit for us. It's 4D chess is what it really is. And,
long game.
I mean, when you guys start, getting on Venable's level of 4D chess, maybe y'all understand.
Yeah.
That's
a respectable effort indeed.
Yeah. No, I think the home slate, man, is going to be fun. I think, with some of the tailgating things that, Joe C. and the president, Joe Haraza, are doing, and hopefully we get to see some of those this year. Hopefully it makes the atmosphere what it should be for an SEC game. Because I think we all know, and Trav's been one of the biggest pioneers on this front, not necessarily for football. I think, most people talk about football, but even for the other sports, particularly baseball, I know Trav has been, hey, get out to the baseball games. And so, when we talk about like SEC fans and fanhood and the tradition and all that, like it's going to hit us square in the mouth. And we got to be ready for it. We got to be packing those things out, getting crazy, and the tailgating. I wish I could be there to do it all the time. I would be at every game if I lived in Oklahoma, but I don't. So y'all got to do it for me. I know Trav going to be there. I know Jay going to be there. I trust them. But I need everybody in the comment section, take it seriously. Be ready for these games when they come, because it's a lot different comparing what we have this coming year to next year, where we have TCU. Do we do SMU? Is SMU at home this year?
Yes, SMU's at home. We go to Tulsa. So Arkansas State.
Yeah.
SMU.
BYU.
SMU. Right. TCU, Iowa State. I mean, it's not the same. It's just not the same. So it should be fun just to interact with those other fan bases and whatnot. But no, I agree with everything you guys said. Bama, obviously, that's the game you look at, and it's like one of those Ohio State, Notre Dame games, where you're like, man, like they have just as much, if not more talent than us. Alabama obviously will be more talented, even if we have, back-to-back number one recruiting class or something like that. Like they've just, created a monster. So that, that's okay to say. But can we beat them? Absolutely. They can be beat by anybody. A&M has beat them, right? Tennessee has beat them. I mean,
I like how it started with, they can get beat by anybody. A&M beat them.
I'm just saying. Let's
ultimate
be real.
Disrespect.
That was unnecessary, uncalled for.
Hey, it's not for, that's not a shot at you. You guys are great. It's more of a shot at A&M because they're just anybody. You know what I mean? But
he's got to use he's got to use two hands to count how many national championships he's seen his team win in his lifetime. And he's like, man, I can't believe the low blow.
Get out of here. Come on,
Get
Ty.
out of here.
Come
I
on,
don't
Ty. Get out of here.
knew
with
that you
that.
had these problems.
Oh, but South Carolina, Tennessee, I absolutely believe are more than winnable games. Obviously, Tennessee is going to, they're getting better. Obviously, the quarterback position there, Joe Milton's going to be good, and Nico will probably be the quarterback, the guy at that time. And man, that's going to be a show to put on. Obviously, we'll see what the defenses look like for both of those. And obviously, at this point, hoping and knowing what a Brent Venables defense has looked like in the past, and trusting that it will look like that by year 3. I give the edge obviously to BV. So we'll see what it looks like, but definitely great games to be had. Now let's get on to the away games, and these are going to be fun to talk about because we're also going to talk about just the atmospheres at these different stadiums and at these different universities. We got Auburn. We already talked about Jordan Hare, which as Ty said, he feels it's cursed. Something like what.
No. I don't feel it's cursed. It is cursed.
It is cursed. I apologize. I'm sorry. So we got LSU, good old Baton Rouge, Death Valley. You got Ole Miss, the Grove, which I've been told repeatedly over this last week and a half or so is one of the best experiences in college football. And then we have Missouri, which is foreign to us, kind of, not really. It's been 10 years. 10, 12 years since we've consistently been there and gone there. But obviously the Oklahoma fan base is familiar enough with Missouri from their time in the Big 12. And so it'll be fun to go back to Columbia, hopefully kick some butt up there. But let's give our reactions to the away schedule and just go through what you guys think of it. Trav, we can start with you, and then we'll go counterclockwise up to Jay and then Ty.
I want to touch on the comments real quick. No, I'm not surprised we retained Ted Roof. He runs Venables defense. He had some recruiting relationships. It didn't pay off like we hoped it would, but you got to keep him around for that. And if you bring in a different defensive coordinator, they're going to probably want to run their own stuff, which we hired Venables to run Venables defense. So no, just no. So anyways, the away slate, super excited about it because, you only kind of have the only one that doesn't have a ton of pageantry is Mizzou. Obviously excited to go up and see old Maggie up there, link up with her in Como. But like you had to get a Mizzou or a Mississippi State or a Vanderbilt on the schedule just based on the standings, right? Like they said, they looked at winning percentages. They looked at and so you were going to get one of the teams that didn't have a high winning percentage, Arkansas, something like that. They all probably would have been in there based on how far they went back. But Ole Miss, gonna be a blast, right? Really excited again, like you said, to go to that campus. I'll be at every one of these. I'll be at all 4. So it'll be a return trip to LSU. I hope that game's at night. I do have a question for you guys, and I want the chat to answer this too. I asked Teddy this today on radio. We agreed, but Pierce didn't. When you're the road team, can you sing along to Callin' Baton Rouge? Can you sing along to Dixieland Delight? Can you just have a good time and sing along? Because I like the vibe, if it's a good time and I like the song, I'm probably going to sing with it. So what are your guys' stance, and give me the chat stance on, are you singing along, or do you feel like you're traitorous? Or do you feel like you're affecting the team somehow negatively, even though they do it when the game is not being played? They do it between the third and fourth quarter, or, whatever. Like they're not doing it while, their defense is on the field or something like that. So how do you guys feel about singing along?
Personally, I approve it. I feel like it's part of the experience of being there. I don't feel like you should ruin your experience and vibe just because you're a fan of a team. Like, you're there to enjoy the environment as well as hope your team win, but you're there to enjoy the environment, the whole experience. That's part of the experience. Why would you pass on the opportunity to participate in this with all of these fans who are losing their mind at the same time? No, I'm hardcore about enjoy yourself, man. Life is short. Enjoy it. You only live once. That definitely sing every song possible.
as long as the teams aren't out on the field, it's between breaks, then yeah, I mean, you're just there having a good time. If you feel some type of way about, I can understand if someone was like, "Oh no, when our offense is out there and they're singing their thing because of their defense is out there," that I can understand. But between breaks, absolutely no. Just everybody's there, just having a good time.
Yeah, I don't personally have a problem with it. I mean, at first I didn't know if you were talking about the team or the fans. So I was like, the team on the sideline.
If
Yeah,
your
team
team is
probably
out
not.
there singing, that's a problem.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But yeah, I think especially, going to some of these places for the first time, you're taking it in. You're enjoying it, and you can still be as, rah-rah as you need to be, and obviously cheering against the team, while still taking in the tradition of, some of college football's greatest places.
Yeah, this isn't a situation where, I'm, throwing up, horns up, or I'm being loud on third down when our offense is on the field. I'm not going to be doing the Gator chomp, or I'm not going to be doing any of that stuff. I'm not going to do any of that. But if it's essentially just like, if there's a song that's not being sung by the fans and just on the loudspeaker, like in between quarters or, pregame or something like that, I don't know how it's any different than singing along to that or kind of vibing to that. It's kind of the same thing. It's a dead ball. It has nothing to do with distracting your team, being loud for your team, anything like that. I'm singing, man.
Great.
Plus some bangers, man, like straight banger, like Calling Baton Rouge and Dixieland Delight. I'm a sucker for 80,000 people singing anything at the same time. So I'll make it 80,001.
I think
100. Yeah.
I think some people would sing if you go to Baton Rouge, and I'm not saying this will happen, but and you win by like 3 scores, you probably would sing, right?
Yeah, it's like the ironic SEC chants whenever in the 2014 game against Bama, the ironic SEC chants. So, but no, it'll be awkward because I'll be in the press box most likely. So it's going to be really weird that I'm belting out Calling Baton Rouge in the press box.
Hey.
I don't think people will sing along to Neck, but other than that, I think it's free game.
Real ones will.
Oh boy.
Oh man. Jay,
would you sing to Neck?
I plead the fifth.
okay, Nick Cannon. Oh, that's something else. Trav, is that all you had on the away slate?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, like I said, going to the game is going to be a blast. The pageantry is awesome. It's, as a fan base, like the BYU radio guys are like, you guys are excited to come here? Why? Like, OU is so starved for quality road games. I mean, our biggest rival, we don't play on the road. We play in a neutral site, which I never want to change. Don't get me wrong. But very rarely does OU go into a hostile environment of a storied program. You go into some hostile environments, but not of a big time historical storied program. So, like the away slate, again, it's kind of like I said on the home slate. Like I'd rather have our 3 games than 10 Big 12 games. I'd rather, if I could go at LSU, at Ole Miss, and just had those 2, then I mean that's all I need right there. You could schedule high schools for the others, and I wouldn't care.
Yeah.
Bishop Sycamore is available.
I'll take them.
Rumor has it. But no, I agree with you, Trav, on that. We are starved for those really good historical games. And that was the one thing I could give props to Joe C. Castiglione on his scheduling and working with like Stoops and even Lincoln Riley at the time. We always made sure we had a quality team we were going against in our non-conference. Some random, it wasn't really like a random, but it was someone that was good. Like the Ohio State series was fantastic. Tennessee back and forth was awesome.
2025, 2026, I believe. So
Michigan coming up. Yeah, Michigan coming up. We brought Nebraska back, just to go the history of just playing that game. But UCLA was awesome, even though, the Rose Bowl's always empty. until now, since UCLA is actually any good. But it's good to have 4 or 5 historical places to travel rather than just the 1 or 2 that we really have on the to me. I believe that we'll probably see more fans travel, especially the first 5 to 10 years, compared to the traveling we've saw in the Big 12 in its existence, because we're really going to some really cool stadiums. Most of them in the 80s to 100,000. We're no longer going to 40s and 50,000 seat stadiums anymore. Most of the SEC, I mean, they've got 3 stadiums over 100,000 right there. Well, 5, my bad, 5 stadiums over 100,000 now. And so, yeah, we're going to get to see some really cool, some great environments overall. So I'm pretty stoked about that too.
Yeah, look, I kid about Jordan Hare, but if you look at this, y'all's away slate is awesome. I mean, you get to go to Auburn, you get to go to LSU, you get to Missouri, y'all have familiarity with, but that's going to be reuniting, right? That's awesome. LSU at night, I hope it's at night. I'm assuming it's going to be at night. I feel like everybody needs to play LSU in Baton Rouge at night. And if you could get to that game, it's a bucket list game. I have several different destinations that are bucket list destinations. That 2025, 2026 Michigan series, right? Like that's one, going to see a game in the big house. That's a must for me. So y'all's away slate. It's going to be such a treat. And it's interesting hearing y'all talk about like being starved for quality away games and how even the BYU people were surprised that it's just going to be a treat in the SEC. Like Jay alludes to, the stadiums are massive. I mean, and they pack them out and they will just rock all night long. It's going to be awesome. OU and Texas are going to add so much to the SEC as well, because you're taking 2 fanatical fan bases that are just as fanatical as the SEC fans and inserting them into the SEC.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be big and so with these travel destinations, Death Valley's awesome. I was so mad that they didn't move the Tennessee game tonight. They kept it in the daytime, and just even in the daytime, it was just rocking. It was Death Valley, 102,000 people, and they're Cajuns, so they're lunatics. It is so much fun. But the Grove is the one place I know a couple people graduated from Ole Miss, and everyone raves about how awesome going through the Grove is. So if there's any game that I say to get your butt to, get to the Grove. Bucket list, 100%.
Man, I mean, I'm even planning on trying to figure out a way to get down to one of these away games. I really am, because this is history, and so it's going to be
Your
exciting.
daughter will be like in high school by then, so you can go wherever.
I know she's walking. Don't tell me it all happens so fast. It's crazy.
Oh, it does. My oldest is at LSU, so yeah, I totally understand.
Man.
Yeah, she's a sophomore now, so yeah.
Wow.
I know we talked about that last time. Remember, we were like, Jesus.
Yeah.
It was like Kevin Hart.
Like you have a college student. I mean, you look like you're late 20s.
Yeah,
it was like the Kevin Hart, Don Cheadle, the damn. Just like that. And damn.
Yeah.
My bad.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
I will say, again, obviously, all these places are much, 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 much more, just historical, better than the Big 12, places we've been to. Obviously, there are some that have, their lore, if you will. You have Texas Tech at night, which again, that's probably much lower on the totem pole than Baton Rouge at night. But one of the things I was going to say is I'll never forget, unfortunately, this year being in the Lon Puskar Stadium in West Virginia, and it's basically sleeting. It's just one of those things you'll never forget. I'm walking up these big, it's these big clob steps. We're walking up after we lost a game that should not have been lost at all. And the entire stadium in unison is singing Country Roads. And if you've ever been to West Virginia, the people of West Virginia are You know, they got their raccoon hats and everything, but they're kind for the most part. And for them to be, you know, so kind in my face singing that song, like, hey, you want to join in? It was just disrespectful.
I would have been belting it, baby. I would have been singing it at the top of my lungs. I love that song.
It was just disrespectful to me because I'm like, I'm cold. There's ice on my face, and y'all are singing this song, and it's just, you know, and you're not even being rude about it. I'd rather you just, like, cuss me out like on the way out, but you know, y'all are like, hey, y'all have a good night now. You here? I'm like, don't talk to me, please.
It's the South, baby. Be prepared when you go down to the South. And the good thing about these SEC games too is that we're not going to be traveling in all these crazy elements in November, except for actually here at Oklahoma. If you're going to get the wild elements, it's probably going to be here or South Carolina. For the most part, you really aren't going to get it in most of the places in the SEC.
Yeah,
Missouri maybe, but they don't count.
Ty, I wanted to give you an opportunity just to really quick, just give your thoughts on Bama's schedule that came out, and just how you feel about what they got.
Man, they have a bit of a gauntlet. Let me tell you what. First off, always pleased when I see Auburn on the home slate. Then you have Georgia, Missouri, South Carolina. If you're an Alabama fan, if you're going to get Georgia, you want Georgia at home. You want Georgia in Tuscaloosa right now. And look, I get it. There's a chance where maybe Georgia's breaking in a new quarterback, but Mike Bobo, he was just under Todd Monken. Todd Monken's offense, incredibly balanced. They're going to be running that same offense. And if I'm not mistaken, the last time Bobo was at Georgia, they were averaging 40 points a game. Like that was an offense that was just going over people's heads. So look, I'm really excited about that Georgia game. I think it's awesome to have them come to Tuscaloosa. Alabama will go there afterwards. That's just great for college football. Missouri is a team where, you know, Alabama played them whenever they first got into the SEC in the SEC championship game. And so anytime we play them, that's always my first thought. I have a lot of questions on South Carolina just because Spencer Rattler won't be there anymore. Right. And they already lost some guys to the portal. They lost their tight end. They lost one of their running backs. They got some guys from the portal, but that's going to be a big year for South Carolina. This is going to be a big year for South Carolina. It's where we get into the away that's interesting. Death Valley, right? Like that's going to be really tough because Garrett Nussmeier seems to be the heir apparent there, and Garrett Nussmeier lit up Georgia. Granted, Georgia prepared for a mobile quarterback in Jalen Davis. I'm sorry, but Garrett Nussmeier went out there and lit into them. So he's a quarterback we have to watch. They'll still have names like a Harold Perkins. I'm going to assume they're going to still have their defensive lineman who's a 5-star, Mason Smith. He just got injured last year. So I'm going to assume he will come back for that senior season after missing all of his sophomore year. LSU is going to be really good. I talked about
Harold Perkins will still be there.
Harold Perkins, no doubt about it. I mean, he's maybe the best player in the SEC coming into this year, right? In terms of ceiling, in terms of everything, he's up there. And I said this earlier, right before Jay came on my live stream. I have a lot of Alabama fans. I have a lot of SEC fans ask me, is this LSU's ceiling though? Like, isn't Brian Kelly just like a perennial 9-win coach? And I was like, well, here's the thing, right? Like you're thinking of Brian Kelly at Notre Dame. And my question is it that this is LSU's ceiling, or what you're holding LSU to was your perception of Brian Kelly's ceiling at Notre Dame? Now he's got unlimited resources. They're going to be good.
Two buffoons, utter buffoons, won national championships at LSU.
Thank you.
So it don't matter.
Thank you.
Utter buffoons.
Yes. I could go into the Ogeron stories that occurred at LSU, and it is wild.
Did I tell you the Ogeron story I had from this past March in Las Vegas?
Please do.
Please continue, Ty. We'll talk about that later.
Beautiful. Love it. Getting Oklahoma on and away, awesome, right? Like, I'm so excited. That's going to be a game I will be in Norman for, right? Like, I hope to do a whole, like, camera on everything. That's going to be fun. We're going to make content around that game. We're going to plot that out. That's going to be a good time. Tennessee, Jay, we talked about this earlier. The interesting thing with Bama's away, and even some of their home in Auburn, LSU, Tennessee, is we play them every year anyways. So it's kind of just like, okay, well, none of those surprise me. And then we have Dandy Vandy, and that's, you feel pretty good, about Vanderbilt. I'll tell you what I am really upset about, though. No Ole Miss, no Mississippi State. This is the first time in, oh God, I think they were saying World War I or something, Alabama hasn't played Mississippi State. That's
wow.
That's been a game that has happened for a long time, which is why, Jay, when we were on the Hall of Fame podcast, I was telling you the Alabama's point was in their three permanent rivals, Tennessee's a historic rival, Auburn's a historic rival, LSU's a new rival. But if we're after historic rivals, Mississippi State is
fair.
one. And then they were also mad that they were getting 8-game money out of a 9-game schedule. That's neither here nor there. I liked the 3-game permanent with LSU, but I am upset that there's no Ole Miss. I am upset that there's no Mississippi State. I like playing Arkansas. So there is some things that I'm going to miss, right? I'm going to miss seeing those teams. But at the end of the day, getting Georgia, getting Oklahoma, that more than makes up for it.
Definitely fair. Really quick, guys, before we move on to our next topic, make sure you hit that like button. We got over 100 of you guys in here. All you got to do is go over and click it. That's all it takes. It takes 2 seconds. Just click that like button. Appreciate you guys being out here for us. If you like the content, make sure you subscribe, everything like that. As we wind it down here, one of the things obviously we wanted to talk about was this weekend. The Fans Champ U BBQ is going down in Norman. Going to have 28, I believe, prospects coming to Norman, and some are already here as we speak. And just wanted to get the lowdown on what's going on and, what we expect out of this weekend. And, Travel, I'll hand it off to you, let you run with that. And then, Jay, if you have any comments on it as well. And then, Ty, obviously, same for you, man. If you have anything just on who we're going to have and what you think about them, love to hear those comments.
Yeah, so obviously Champ U being, theoretically the big recruiting weekend of the summer. Now, last weekend, obviously having Williams Nwaneri in and 7 offensive linemen and Marcellus Williams and Kobe Black and Braden Platt and all these guys. Like, we had a significant number last week. So it's like, man, we're kind of backing it up here pretty good. So it was really cool at camp today, even to see them walking around. Michael Boganowski was around camp, hanging out with the coaches. Because keep in mind, we've got elite high school camp right now. So when these guys are coming in early, and visiting unofficially before their actually official start tomorrow, they want to be around the coaches. Well, where are the coaches? They're at the camp. So what's cool was you got Boganowski hanging out, Brandon Hall, and then you get Devon Mitchell in there hanging out. Marco Mitchell, his dad's there. Devon Mitchell's hanging out, helping coach up one of the 2027 guys that's a camper. He's helping him with his footwork. I mean, playing around with Joe John's kids, and you got David Stone walking through the indoor, and with all his OU stuff on, and obviously him and Michael Patterson McDonald have been here the last couple days on officials, like back-to-back unofficials before they go on their official the 16th through the 18th. So obviously the staff's going to want to try and push them to shut it down now and really get this show on the road type situation. Obviously, I feel like there's about a 5 to 10% chance of that happening. I think that's going to be, it feels a lot like David Stone's going to have more of a production to his announcement than anything. He's been very active in his recruitment with content and things like that. So I don't think that he's kind of the type of guy that'll just tweet out an edit or anything like that. I think it'll be a bit more dramatic than that. So, but I think OU, a lot of people around OU feel really, really good about it. I think they've got reason to feel really good about it. Got a couple of big time offensive linemen in with Bennett Warren, friend of the program. Bennett Warren being chief among them, really. I mean, after hosting so many of them last week, you kind of wonder, where they're at on some of those. But yeah, it's Caden Durham being in town, that's big. Xavier Robinson has been having some good momentum, we'll say. And you got to keep in mind, a lot of those guys, like Michael Patterson McDonald, Caden Durham, and David Stone all likely would have been on the same, likely to be on the same football team their senior year of high school. Had Caden stayed and had, David Stone stayed, they could have made that happen very easily. So you're talking about, a 5-star, a borderline, like a top 8, top 7 back, and then Michael Patterson McDonald, who's a 4-star in one of the services. But, things like that, like getting them all together, realizing that they grew up kind of together, like that's really important to the staff. They're pulling out all the stops. Hopefully, the weather didn't knock out their power, because that's the unfortunate thing when you get people that aren't from here, that come on an official visit. All of a sudden, their families are all freaking out because they're like, "Oh my God, there's a tornado coming." No, there's not. We good. We just doing podcasts by candlelight. Ain't no thing. So, like, which I will say, you see me yawning a little bit. This candle, I think, is some type of like aromatherapy situation, like, and it's right under my nose.
Sleepy time.
Man, it is knocking me out, man. It's like a white cypress aromatherapy, something. I'm knocking soon, guys. But, anyways, so with that, Champ U, like I said, we're gonna have a bunch of former players in town. Even just kind of a peek into last week's festivities. They went to Toby Keith's hangar, busted out the private jets. I mean, even pass cars, had the luxury cars, but had the private jets. He's got the basketball hoops, got the pickleball court there in his hangar. Really, really cool. Beautiful sunset that night. Looking over the jets and whatnot. So really, really cool. They brought in, even for Waneri, they brought in a Nigerian pastor to talk to him, and he from Victory, and was super cool that they're going to those lengths and trying to make the family connections, the comfort, make it feel like home, that kind of thing. Like, that's some good stuff. So really excited about Champ U. I think we see some commitments come out the other side, because they pushed Champ U back this year, because last year they found that some guys didn't commit because they felt like, okay, I still want to take some visits, or they committed a la, like Colton Bosick type situations where they commit, but then they still want to take visits. So, hey, let's get them later in their recruitment. So we'll see. I think a lot of these guys are pretty close to shutting it down. So looking forward to it. But it was really cool to see them around the facilities today, working with the coaches.
Yeah, that list is robust. I mean, from Stone, of course, and Nigel Smith being here, Dominic McKinley, the Louisiana product that we're trying our hardest to snatch from the jaws of LSU. Joseph Jonah Ajonye, which that one it feels more and more and more and more like Georgia, unfortunately, but still trying to put out an impressive display and trying. I can see Bates landing a couple this weekend. It feels like this is, and just like you mentioned, Travis, they moving it back. It feels like it's at this point, it's like, all right, we're closer to the end of the month. If you're either going to take the last visit, you'll do it, then probably commit. Most are going to get theirs done in here in June instead of going through July. But hopefully we can get a few of them to pull a Sammy Brown, go in, get excited, say, screw it, I'm shutting everything down, commit, cancel all my OVs, focus on my senior year just so I can get on campus by January and become an early enrollee. I'm really hoping we get it in that capacity, but I mean, of course, you never know. But yeah, Stone needs to go ahead and just lock it down. His parents need to go ahead and let him lock it down. I heard that he's at Bates' house, Bates' office all the time, feet kicked up anytime he's in town. He's sitting on campus. So just make it official, folks. Let's get it over with.
Yeah, and one of the things we talk about all the time when we talk about recruiting is with these blue chip, and specifically, it doesn't have to be a 5-star, but you see these 5 stars and they move the needle, right? Like, guys want to play with them, and especially when we look at a guy like David Stone, you don't think that would get a ball rolling, right? Like, that absolutely would get a ball rolling. It'd be a huge momentum for Oklahoma. Look, we talked about this earlier on the show, and I only highlighted a few players that stand out to me. or provide incredible storylines, right? And so the players I highlighted, naturally, the interior defensive line guys, y'all have all talked about them: Stone, McKinley, Nigel Smith, Joseph Jonah, Ajonye. Jay, to your point, Georgia has the crystal ball predictions in their favor, but this is the interesting thing about it. This is what you love, that you get Ajonye after his visit to Georgia, because Nwaneri loved his time at Georgia, per all reports, came to Oklahoma and was blown away, per reports, right? So getting them in after these major visits to a Georgia, to an Alabama, to an LSU, to a Texas, to an A&M, that's big. We always talk about follow the visits. If you can get the last visit, whether that be official, unofficial, that can work out tremendously in your favor. And let's be honest here, it's Todd Bates. We know what he did at Clemson, big name in terms of recruiting the defensive line. And I know this wasn't the topic, but, you know, for people who doubt Todd Bates, this is.
Say, you sure, Todd? You sure? Because
no,
Todd Bates can't recruit. I don't know.
No. This is the thing, man. I said this on my show today because whenever you're talking about like what battles did he lose, if you go into a recruiting battle and you lose to an Alabama, okay, like you're in a battle against Alabama because of Todd Bates, right? Like it's for a Jordan Renaud, for instance, right? Like Todd Bates is the guy who's making that a split-second decision for him, right? Like he's
also been outbagged too, and that's the problem. Is when he won Recruiter of the Year in 2019, NIL wasn't a thing. You know, David Hicks is a Sooner if he doesn't get bagged, and I will say that with my chest.
True. NIL changed a lot, no doubt about it. But it just reinforces the point, right? Like there's nuance to the conversation of these recruiting battles, and that nuance can't be ignored. So Ajonye is an interesting storyline, one I would keep up with. We talked about McKinley. Trying to pull anybody that LSU wants out of that state is always notoriously tough. Jay, we just talked about it earlier. Colorado had a kid go out there from Louisiana that's a hop, skip, and a jump from Baton Rouge, the campus. They've wanted this kid forever. He commits to Colorado. Everything seems like it's going hunky-dory. The next time he's in Boulder, he decommits, and a week later is committed to LSU. And he said, like, look, I know how this looks, but I grew up an LSU fan, and I just felt called. All well and good. We know how this goes. But that's the type of thing, man. It's very difficult lifting these dudes out. The running backs is another interesting situation. You have Taylor Tatum, kind of the same argument we have for Joseph Jonah Ajonye, getting them after a visit they may have liked. Taylor Tatum liked that USC visit, but I mean, there can't be too many more compelling pitches than DeMarco Murray, right? That's one of my biggest arguments for DeMarco Murray all the time. He has the experience personally. He has the experience coaching, and they have the offensive line to go with it. And then Caden Durham, Jay, we talked about this, another guy I got into. The question with him is, does he want to run track? And that's the real big question there. If he wants to run track, hard to argue with what LSU does on that track and field. And I talked about this earlier. This might be a situation where OU fans, dare I say, you root for Texas to win the battle for a Colin Simmons, because if LSU gets him, I'm not saying that that'll be the reason Caden Durham goes there, but just like Travis was saying, they're trying to pitch, these guys, they play on the same team right now. If you think of recruiting like filling a bucket full of water, that's just another drop in the bucket for LSU. So the battle for Colin Simmons is an interesting one. And then Bennett Warren, y'all talked about him once again, sticking with the theme, trying to have these relationships win over. He loves the visit coming out of Michigan. Kind of odd that it's an OU alum at Michigan pulling all of these big time offensive linemen.
And I'm the one that told him about that. He didn't know that Sharon went to OU. So
very few people put that together.
Right. And I was like, yeah, he went to OU, right? And Bennett was like, wait, what? I was like, yeah, that's an OU guy recruiting you to Michigan. He's like, man, that's crazy. I was like, yeah.
Wild.
It's only because he didn't have a job down here. That's the only reason why.
Yeah, I mean, look, if we're talking the best running back coaches in the nation, you talk Bill Bedenbaugh, you certainly talk Sharon Moore. The guy does an incredible job, but because Bill Bedenbaugh's name is mentioned so much and because these NFL offensive linemen have made a mint from being developed by Bill Bedenbaugh, Bennett Warren's another name. So look, that's only a few names out of the massive weekend OU is going to have, but I always love following names that provide massive storylines, and each and every single one of these names provides a huge storyline to follow.
Yeah, it's good. That's good. No, I agree with all your guys' points. I mean, it's a huge weekend for OU, and this is a bigger, important recruiting class period heading into the SEC. This is our last year in the Big 12, and so to be able to kind of obviously finish the year out with a bang, not only on the field but off the field, is super important. I'm sure the staff realizes that. Nobody needs to tell them that, no matter how many people on Twitter want to continue to go after Todd Bates and say, get off here or whatever, get some DL in here. It's tedious at this point, but excited to see what we get out of this weekend. 100%. But we're about out of time here. Man, it's been a fun night. It's been great talking about the SEC schedule and what we can look forward to. We got Power Addicts Trav down there. That is gonna go up in the halls of the JP and Trav show as one of the all-time moments for sure. But man, Ty and Jay, thanks for coming on, guys. Man, you guys are huge friends of the show. You already know. And I'm sure, again, we will have you guys on very soon.
Mm-hmm.
As always, the invitation is always open. So appreciate y'all. Ty, tell the people where they can find you at.
Yeah, you can find me at Around the Table Sports on YouTube. Just do constant college football content. Always love coming on the show, man. Just thank you so much for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Jay, how about you, brother?
Yeah, Jay, you search me Unfair Sports on YouTube, and like Ty, making constant college football content. Going to be expanding even more over the summer as we get through this recruiting cycle. But I love coming on here and hanging out with y'all because it's always fun, and Travis always got some funny stuff happening every time I've seen him.
Always, always. But I make it.
Yes. Hey, you're dedicated to the cause, man. That's beautiful. You've got. I mean, the spooky vibes is awesome. We got to do this for Halloween next time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll see what the record's like, and we'll see about that. But no, I appreciate you guys coming on. No doubt, always good to do these kind of bigger panels and whatnot. 4 is always a good number. So appreciate everybody in the comments too, man. Everybody listening live, watching live, good stuff.
Absolutely. Thank everybody that was in the comments and just watching the show. Appreciate your guys' support and everybody that will watch. Last thing I did want to say, because I promised my wife that I would, and I love my beautiful wife. She's a huge Taylor Swift fan. She's going to her second concert this weekend in Pittsburgh. And I don't know if you guys know much about Taylor Swift, anybody in the comments, but they do this thing where they make friendship bracelets. And so she made me one. I didn't know what she was going to do, but she made me a little Oklahoma one right here. So I promised her I'd show it off for the boys. But it looks good. I mean, it's
nice. I love it.
Black, you know what I mean? But, just trying to give Mama a little bit of a break because she holds it down for me while I'm an athletic director and I'm busy all the time. And so she works full time from home and takes care of our daughter. And so just trying to, give her a good birthday weekend because her birthday's on Monday. So shout out to her. But just want to do that real quick. So appreciate y'all. Ty, Jay, Trav, I love all y'all, man. Thanks again for everything you guys provide the show and the content. Again, I'm sure we'll have you guys on soon. Guys, make sure you go like and subscribe to both the Ty and Jay's pages on YouTube. Make sure you go follow them on Twitter. Make sure you go follow the JP and Trav show. Again, that's at JP and Trav show on Twitter. Make sure you just continue to get that count up. We'll have all of our content there as well. But yeah, looking forward to maybe a great weekend and hearing back next week that maybe we have some commits. Who knows? We'll see. But without further ado, we'll see y'all next week back here, same time, 9 p.m. Central Time. Boomer.
Peace.